This will be the first of a few videos that I'm going to do. This isn't going to be anything super exciting. I am simply going to walk through my process of starting a story, planning it from scratch within ChatGPT, just so y'all can see how I do it. But if you've watched me do anything like this before, you know it's very simple, very back and forth. As you'll see after just a few minutes, that's all I'm ever really doing with ChatGPT is fleshing out some ideas. So again, this one is just going to be very straightforward, uneventful. So you won't hear me talking too much. I'll just kind of let you know what I'm doing at stages, but mostly you should be able to just watch as I go. So for this story, I actually do not know what genre I want to do. I know I want it to be not record either fantasy or romance, but I'm not positive. I actually don't know anything about this story. The only thing I do know is what I'm going to tell Chad, and that is a log line that is stuck in my head. So yes, I am planning a story from a log line. So here we go. I like to use my manners. Y'all know this by now. I'm going to keep it very conversational. No special prompting here. Right. So just telling it I want his help. Don't know the genre, but I do know I want to stick with either dark romance or fantasy because I don't want to give him me sci-fi or anything else. And the log line. Variation. That's what I want to say. I'm going to do one more. Right. So two for dark romance, two for fantasy. And it knows me so well. Dove right into the criminal underworld. Oh, I like that. Where she's going to start usurping the power. I actually don't like the rest of it. So in this instance, I'm thinking I would take this where she's usurping his power and combining it with this first one. Don't like the first one. I like the second one that actually fits very well with a series I had started recently. So I'm going to tell it what I do and don't like out of all of these and narrow it down just a little bit. I'm going to look that and see what it gives me. Just saying that I'm not going to ask it for any sort of fleshing out of details or outline just yet. This is the one I will actually start planning, the Stark Romance. Right, so I'm uncertain on the part where she realizes the extent of his cruel reign, and I'm going to guide it towards what I do want. I'm just asking it to not moralize her so much. She understands what needs to be done. This should be finished. It is. So I'm just going to drag it. I can put it here. And duplicate that fix. So I like that. She's not surviving, she's thriving. So I would have to later decide if there's going to be a romance between them or somebody else. But for right now, I want to go back to focusing on her and how she came into this marriage. I'm gonna ask you for ideas because I do kind of want her to be think I wanna be her to be coerced or forced into the marriage, and then later, after she's there, she's decided she's had enough. Yeah, yeah. Then the next part. So it probably takes me about an hour of doing this small back and forth before I have a really good idea of how my story is going to play out, all the major overview sort of, so I know the beginning, middle, end. I know all the major conflicts, the major characters, and from that point on, then I start diving into character backstories, the intricate plot points, subplots, anything like that. But again, that first hour is pretty much spent getting that overview down and making sure Chat and I are on the same page. And that's what I'm going to continue doing. It's just going back and forth with it like this. We have one story like this, so I don't think I want the debt. I like this, the strategic alliance. Okay, so right away, I'm going to need clarification on this. Going to need to make sure the plot point is believable and strong for why the larger organization would agree to this. Like the adapting the power. Okay. So two things we need to focus on. One, why would they agree to it? Then I want to ask it for plot points or pros and cons. It's so focusing on that plot point that needs to be clarified and improved, and then dealing with the romantic interest. Okay, the political ties are a good idea. I can actually see both of these. I think that would help make the story stronger. Okay, so I like one, and this last portion of the three. I'm going to think some more on those. Let me just send this real quick. So I'm leaning towards actually initially having it be more like a love triangle and then perhaps stay with the husband. I'm not sure yet. So I really like this first portion with that smaller organization having some power. Still not entirely happy about some people wanting to be diplomatic. They're in the criminal underworld. Most wouldn't care. So that would need to be resolved. But overall, this is pretty good. I remember. Leaning to 1 or 4 in this one. Typically, I wanted to stay with her husband. Now, again, I still just have that basic overview of my story. I don't know all of the main plot points. I don't know a lot of the details. But my next step is generally fleshing out the characters. And I do the characters first because 9 times out of 10, as I'm fleshing out the characters and doing some details with them, something will pop up that makes me get an idea for a plot point in the story or maybe change directions for the plot in the story. So instead of having to change things up later, I just start with the character since I know that tends to do it for me. So the first thing I'm going to do, everything's still fresh here, but I like to consolidate everything. So the first thing I'm going to do is take all of this, the output that I copied. I've gone through, made some changes, just very minor changes, basically repeating things that y'all saw in the chat. And I'm just going to copy all of this. And then I am going to ask it to start focusing on the characters because I do have an idea now for how I see this playing out. So the main thing I'm going to do is that Raphael character it gave us. I actually liked the details to be for the female lead. So instead, I'm going to ask it that this gets converted to kind of like our female's qualities. And then we will keep these two. So in this one, since he was part of the smaller organization, I think I'm going to have him be maybe like a best friend or even possibly someone who is her rival in that organization, but maybe they start working together or kind of like an enemies to friends thing. and then this guy would be the other potential love interest. And I'm just going to copy these. I'm just going to tell it this is everything we know so far. And I'm not going to ask anything else. I just want to make sure it has everything in its memory. And again with the compliments. Just gonna let it go through all of this, and then I'll start with asking it to change that Raphael character to be the female lead's qualities. Just reading through everything real quick, see if anything stands out as being real. Right, so first thing I'm going to do is not make any corrections there. That's kind of what I am going to do for this one. I will ask it for ideas and developing each character. Then if I see something wrong with a character, I will start focusing on it to get it in line and then switch to another character. There was one thing I didn't like. Okay, so this will be some more areas where I change things up or edit after I get done with the majority of it. But I want to focus now on one of the other characters. Let me focus on this one first. But he should possibly also be maybe a child, one of the members. I want to change this whole thing right here for the relationship dynamic. I'm undecided if I want to make it flat out if they have no romantic interest in each other or leave the readers guessing. Okay, so I like that. Changing it where he's either a best friend or a rival. Also a child of one of the members, no romantic interest, and set him up for another book. I don't think we need to work on the other potential love interest, the one that's going to be using her. I do want to go ahead and start working on the character for the female protagonist and the male lead. You said don't like either of them's names, and then I can use other websites though for that, like behind the name or beyond the name. This sci-fi one actually has some really good ones, fantasy name generator, all of those. So basically, I will just continue going as you've seen. I will go through each character, make any changes that I need, add anything I need to, and then once I know I have all of their basic qualities and personalities and everything in place and ready, I will once again copy the output of everything here. So making all the edits here that I need of the new stuff I copied. And then next time I go back into chat, once again, copying everything into it and saying, okay, here's everything we know about this story. And then I will start developing the plot points. I went through and refined my character personalities and the roles in the stories. I changed their names up to something that I like a little bit better that could still change, but for now, this is what they are. And as I was messing with the characters, I had another idea for how the first book could play out. So I went back into chat, asked it for two outline versions, one for the book originally, as we discussed, for the series that way, and then another for how it would play out with my new idea. So you can see here, it gave me that output. So I now have two options for how my series can play out. And then I also ended up with a third idea. So for now, I'm just going down a rabbit hole with this story. It's time to set it aside and just kind of wait and see what ideas come to me and what starts resonating with me for this story before I continue with it. But I asked for the outline this way. I don't have to go through a lengthy chat conversation. I can reference the outline real quick and I might decide, I want to combine the outlines. Who knows? But by the time I'm done with this, it will be similar to this. So I will have my whole series pitch, all of that. I will have my characters figured out for everything. and then each book will have its own plot points. This is essentially as far as I would go with it in chat because I tend to write dark, and we know chat triggers a lot. So once I have all of this, I tend to just use Sudowrite. Of course, use your preferred AI program, whatever that is that works best for you. But that's where I really start refining this and putting in all of my specific details, all of the dark things I see happening, all the violence, the sexual content, everything else, because I don't have to worry about those trigger warnings inside Sudowrite. So that is essentially it. You've seen my process. Again, it's a lot of back and forth with chat, getting my ideas down, making sure the story plays out the way I want it to, getting all of that copied into my story tracker inside Notion, and then refining it and getting it inside Sudowrite to where I can actually start writing it. And then once I start writing it and generating prose inside Sudowrite, I start going back and forth with chat. So if my characters' dialogues aren't coming out the way that I want them to, I might start working on chat with chat to kind of tweak those things. I hope this helps y'all and have fun plotting your stories. Bye, everyone.